Hi. So, first I'd like to apologize for the gap in videos. The book I was reading, one, took me a long time, and two, I went on a small vacation, so that delayed things. But anyway, I'm back, and I'm here to review a new book for you today, and that book is going to be 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Um, I had never read any of his work, and um, wasn't super familiar with his work, but throughout some Spanish classes and things that I'd had to take the last couple semesters, I was introduced to the film Love in the Time of Cholera. I still haven't read the book, and I've heard that this book, 100 Years of Solitude, is sort of like his masterpiece, so I wanted to start there. Um, and go from there. And I've heard the style he writes in is called magic realism, where most of it is realism in that it's very descriptive of what's going on and the day-to-day activities, but then at the same time there are mythical almost aspects to the story, but they're told in a way that is very real. For instance, there's a part where one of the characters, she's folding a sheet, or she's helping to fold a sheet, and the sheet gets caught by the wind, and she literally floats up to heaven and is never seen again. But the way these things are said, they aren't said like as jokes or as overly it's not like a big deal. It's like, oh yeah, the same as saying like, oh yeah, she went to the market on Tuesday and got milk. Um, and I was actually reading that in this, he was kind of inspired by the way his grandmother would tell him stories about the things that had gone on in the town she lived in. That she would say myths and legends with the same straight face that she would tell him any other story. So he was inspired to write the book in that same sort of voice. It was interesting. At first, I didn't really enjoy it. It's very dense and not a lot happens plot-wise that feels like a cohesive story, not moving towards anything. But I think that's part of it. It takes place in a village in the jungle, and the book itself is kind of a jungle. Nothing's out in the open. It's not necessarily written in a difficult way, or the story's not too convoluted, other than a lot of the characters share names. Over the generations, there's like 3 generations that it goes through, and the name Aureliano is really common. I think there's probably like 25 people in the whole book who have that name or some version of that name. And then the name Jose Arcadio is very common, and Remedios and Ursula. There's a lot of names that get reused, so keeping it straight can be a little difficult about which one they're actually talking about, but they usually have a little title or a nickname, so you can kind of keep track of it. But the book's kind of like a jungle, and that you have to find the meaning. The meaning isn't obvious, and I think that was probably partly intentional. A lot of it's about, I'm not even sure what it's about at the end of the day. I've come away from it still a little confused about what I actually just read. Not what happened, but the meaning and the overall theme. So it's one of those. It's almost like a blank canvas. You could search in through it and find your own kind of meaning. I'm sure for almost anything you wanted to say. It was interesting. It was at times beautiful, and at other times unimaginably slow and seemingly pointless. It's a tough one. I can see why it's a classic, but I can also see why a lot of people hate it. It's one of those books. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. Or I guess you could be like me and you could read it and not really know if you love or hate it. I still don't know. I'm not sure. And I probably will never really be sure. I'll probably have to do some more research to figure out what is going on and what he meant. And then maybe that'll help me fall on one side or the other. But as of right now, my verdict is there's no help on this one. You have to read it for yourself to figure out whether or not it's for you. So, I have another book that was quick that I just went through, and I'm working on my next, so the next video should not take as long to get to you guys. So until I see you again, have a good day, and happy reading.